Hello everybody and welcome to another list video here at Playing Board Games. This is the second in a series that I'm doing where I'm going through every player card expansion and I am having our community choose their top 3 cards from that expansion that they think are the strongest player cards in that expansion. I just say, hey, just so you know, I'm not defining what strong is, just give me your top 3 strongest cards of player cards. This can be any sort of player card, investigators, traditional cards you put into your deck, that kind of stuff. And I just take the votes here and put it into this video. I did Scarlet Keys already, which you can find in the video description. This is Dream Eaters for this one. Dream Eaters is a very interesting cycle to me because I think it is a very powerful expansion for cards and especially investigators. I think it is the strongest investigators in the actual game, with the forms of Mandy Thompson, Tony Morgan, Luke Robinson, and then there's also Tommy and Patrice, who, while obviously are like tiers below them in my personal power ranking, they are still very strong investigators and are very good at getting the job done. It's one of those things that even though it's really strong, whenever we do limited collections, we actually have a lot of issues with Dream Eaters in our box, like in our choice. Whoever chooses Dream Eaters usually always ends up saying, man, there's nothing here. And this is funny because there's actually there's comments in this survey that I give, which you can actually also find before I get too much into this Dream Eaters thing here. There's actually a link to the next form for the Forgotten Age, which you can find down in the video description. But in this Dream Eaters one, I allow people to do comments, and there's just 2 comments I'm looking at right here back to back, which is, wow, this expansion is stacked, and Dream Eaters is wild for the number of staples that are in it. But the question is, why does it feel as if there's nothing in it when we play this? Because it is a very strong very strong expansion, and the cards that made it here in our final amount of, like, for the top 5 are very powerful cards. And I think a lot of this is because it's a lot of combo oriented cards, like they're like capstones to archetypes, or they're pieces of an archetype, or alternatively, because of the myriad, there actually is less player cards in the expansion, but that means that the cards are more powerful, feel more impactful, which I think is just a very interesting thing, because I agree, there's a lot of really strong cards here, but for some reason, whenever we play Dream Eaters with a limited collection, it feels like that is not the case. Alright, enough of my little intro. Why don't we get to the actual first card here, which is going to be Pendant of the Queen. So we got 92 votes for this poll. Thank you for your support. It's fun to go through all your stuff and read through all your comments, and also just, see what you guys all vote here, but 13 of the 92 votes got Pendant of the Queen. So Pendant of the Queen is a bonded cards for the Segment of Onyx. Segment of Onyx are a myriad cards. You get 3 of them. They're 1 cost and fast, and when you have 3 of them in play, you can remove them and put the Pendant of Queen into play. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Pendant of the Queen is bonded, 3 charges. If this card has no charges, set it aside out of play and shuffle 3 set-aside copies of Segment of Onyx into your deck. Notably, if you are playing with the with Taboo List, this will remove from the game when it does leave. But there are ways to circumvent that still make this card as powerful as it was when it did actually just go back into your deck, which is kind of crazy. You can also, as a Lightning Bolt, exhaust Pendant of the Queen and spend a charge to choose a revealed location and select one. And I'm pretty sure it's move to that location, exhaust an enemy at the location, or discover a clue at that location. So, very powerful effects. There was something that for these Segment of Onyxes, which were a 1 experience card and you get 3 of them, there was a theory that people said that originally myriad cards, when they were experienced, you had to pay individually for each card. And I think that would make more sense for Segment of Onyx, because generally when you look at Segment of Onyx and then also by relation Pendant of the Queen, a big part of that thing was just how easy it was actually to find those cards, especially in Mandy Thompson when she was just revealed, when you could have a 30-card deck size and just go absolutely hog wild searching it and finding exactly what you needed. But beyond that, Pendant of the Queen and Segment of Onyx are also still actually very playable in Seekers in general, because it's very easy to draw cards or find things in your Seeker deck. This means that by just the nature of this only being a 1 experience card, it actually was very powerful and very easy to get out. Pendant of the Queen itself, I think we would all agree, is worth more than 1 experience. I think we would all agree on that, right? This is not a 1 experience card. Like, if this just existed As a 3-cost asset, this would not cost 1 experience, right? Like it would cost more. But the philosophy behind Segment of Onyx meant that you had to find 3 of them, and then they would only cost 1 experience for that. But if you look at Segment of Onyx as a 3 experience card, there is a chance that potentially this would feel more right. We don't play with Segment of the Onyx or Pen of the Queen that much anymore because the card actually is just kind of, well, not like broken powered, is kind of just like boring powered, right? There's nothing like really cool about it. You just get your 3 Segment of Onyxes in play, you use Pendant of the Queen, if you're playing Taboo, you recharge your Pendant of the Queen. If you are not playing Taboo, you just like put your Pendant of the Queen back into your deck, like your Segment of Onyxes back into your deck, and then draw them and do it again. And it's like a very, like, especially when your deck is about to run out. There was a pretty common play pattern with Mandy Thompson when she was first released, which is you play your Segment of Onyxes, get your Pendant of Queen in play, use 2 charges, and then when you have like 1, 2, or 3 cards left in your deck, you use the last charge of Pendant of the Queen to put your 3 Segment of Onyxes back into your deck, which means that you can draw it and then set it up again very quickly, which is really powerful. Now, of course, there's some new cards. For example, the new Enraptured in Drowned City, which is going to go really good with this card. I kind of want to play an Amanda deck. I want to play a lot of Amanda decks with Enraptured 2, and like Pendant of the Queen is one of those decks. But this is a very powerful card. Only got 13 of the votes, but notably, one thing you'll notice, and also just generally with surveys, 13 is actually like, the high numbers won't even hit like half, like when we get to our number 1 and our number 2. But 13 is a pretty big vote for this one here. All right, let's go to our next one, which is Brute Force with 18 of 92 votes. This is a survivor skill that commits for 1 fist and it's 1 experience. It's innate and developed, max 1 committed per skill test. While Brute Force is committed to a basic fight action, it gains Fist, and the text, if this is successful by 2 or more, this attack deals +2 damage. This is a wild card. This is not in the sense that this card is like you don't know what to expect from it, because you know exactly what to expect from Brute Force. It just gets the job done, right? This was, so for a long time, a little bit of history here, a little bit of preview for Survivor Week coming up in May, but in original Survivor days, Resourceful was obviously a very powerful card, and it still is a very powerful card today. And most commonly, you would bring back, I would say, probably Luckies in Survivor's early days. Like, maybe you would bring back Look What I Found, but I think that ultimately Look What I Found has actually... It was never a bad card, but I think it's gotten better with age, you know, so to speak. But then Brute Force came out, and suddenly both Brute Force and also Sharp Vision, which did not make the cut, but it did get... It actually only got 3 of the 92 votes, so it actually wasn't even close to making the cut. But these 2 cards kind of just changed what a resourceful target wanted to be, especially for Brute Force. Brute Force, I think, is... just, I think, one of the most efficient damage dealing options that survivors can work with. And then also, I think, to prove at this point that Brute Force is so powerful, is the fact that you have seen decks. I've seen decks. I'm sure someone watching has also seen a deck or even played a deck where, for example, let's just say you're Minty fan, as just an example, and you bring Brute Force even though you're never planning on fighting, but your fighter on your team is going to fight. Brute Force is that efficient and the damage output is that good. I've been in situations where Travis said, you should just basic punch this guy, and then I do, and Travis is like, here's a Brute Force for you, baby, right? The card is just that efficient. It's also, as I said, like it's kind of like the card that I look at bringing back with Resourceful. With Silas Marsh, for example, my most played survivor, he's also skill-based. Whenever I hit my Elder Sign, in a perfect world, I'm looking to grab a Resourceful to grab a Brute Force from that thing as well. Like to commit the Resourceful to bring that Brute Force back, to use that Brute Force to then play that original Resourceful to get that Brute Force back. If I can play Brute Force as much as possible, I know I'm going to win the scenario because the card is just that good. I wouldn't say like it's broken or anything. Like this isn't like, I think, like a busted card. But what I think Brute Force shows, and also a card later on this list shows, was that we have seen a big shift in terms of how damage was looked at compared to clues. If we compare this to Sharp Vision, which I'll just quickly read that card for all of you at home. So it's the same thing. Max 1 committed per skill test, while as a committed during a basic investigate, it gains book. If it's successful, by 2 or more, discover an additional clue at this location. They realized, the designers realized, that damage is not equal to clues in terms of card advantage, right? Like, so like when we're using a Brute Force versus a Sharp Vision at 2 clues is still fine. Brute Force at 2 damage probably would not have been fine, right? It probably would have not seen play. So having Brute Force deal 3 damage, I think, was very important, to also being kind of like a crossroads for, at this point, the designers realized, hey, I think our damage dealing cards should deal 3 damage compared to a clue getting an additional clue. And I think this was a very good, healthy change for fighters that ultimately put them in a better spot. Let's go on to our next card here, which is Easy Mark with 29 of 92 votes. This is a 0 cost, 1 experience Myriad card. It's an event. Gain 2 resources and draw 1 card. As a reaction, after you play Easy Mark, play another Easy Mark from your hand at no cost. Also, this is a trick, which is very notable for Rita Young as an example of one of the rogue cards that she can take that kind of makes her Survivor Rogue. She's a Survivor Rogue, but not really. It's kind of fun for her. Easy Mark is a very efficient economy card. We've actually, on the how things have gone on our channel, it's very interesting to talk about how we've talked about Easy Mark, especially in my own journey for how I approach Easy Mark as a card. There was a time when I was like, with Easy Mark, I only want to play this if I'm triggering like all 3, and I would like hold them back. And then eventually I was like, wait a minute. What if I just want to play Easy Mark, right? Like, is Easy Mark itself actually an okay card to play? Because the big shift for me, too, was just when I started to play Emergency Cash 2 and I realized, wait a minute, this card is actually, like, good. It's actually, like, in my mind, underplayed. But this is kind of like a 1 experience version of that, and it's very similar. And you can get that extra boost to, like, to match it, right? If you can play multiples of them, and it's really nice. But when I started playing Easy Mark just as its own individual card, if I needed to, because I had nothing else to do. Like, if I'm looking at Easy Mark in my hand, and I'm like, I can either draw, my last action is either going to draw a card or gain a resource, I'm just going to play Easy Mark, and I'm not going to care too much about the loss value down the road, because that is just value now. And that was something that I always thought Easy Mark was a good card, but that's kind of like changed my perspective and even my play pattern of Easy Mark, which has made it just, in my mind, more well-rounded for myself, and also shows my own personal journey and assessment when it comes to Easy Mark. Easy Mark, it's just an economy card. It's like not going to be really like flashy or bombastic. It's not going to help you win the game directly, but it's going to help you play your other cards or draw more cards that are going to help you win the game more directly. Economy cards shouldn't like help you win the game, because then they start getting like too good. But I think Easy Mark is a good example of a nice, strong economy card that gets the job done. Another thing that Easy Mark does, which is very nice, is for 1 experience you get 3 copies of your deck. 3 copies of it in your deck, which means that just generally your deck is going to get stronger when the time comes, right? Like, this is something that we always say for like our challenge runs. If you have Dream Eaters in your pool, or you are like doing a draft run, or like you're like doing like we did like a chaos run where our original deck was randomized, Easy Mark was a really nice option that we could just take and then remove 3 cards from your deck. So you're basically just making your deck better. Additionally, Easy Mark is really good with In the Thick of It, where you get the 3 extra starting experience for 2 trauma of your choice. What's really nice about that is that you usually buy a 2 experience card. Like, if you're not buying a 3 experience card, you're buying a 2 experience card in Easy Mark if it's in your pool. I've done that so much, and I've seen a lot of people do it too, and Easy Mark is really nice for that. It's just a good way to get some good economy, and it does feel, there was a lot of comments here that were basically just being like, damn, being able to like play all 3 easy marks at once, oh boy, does that feel good. And I agree, it feels fucking great. All right, let's go to our our second card, but 4th in the video here. Number 2, we got Spectral Razor, 2-cost Mystic Event. It's a spell. Fight, add your brain value to your skill value for this attack. Immediately before this attack, you may engage the attacked enemy. This attack deals +1 damage, +2 damage instead if the enemy is non-elite. Okay. Spectral Razor, I mean, it got 29 of the votes, right? Which is a pretty good showing for the number 2 card. The number 1 card only beat it by 3 votes. So it was a very close push for the number 1 card here. But when I think of Dream Eaters, I think of Spectral Razor. This card was incredibly important to the Mystic class. This was something that we actually talked about during Mystic Week, how just Mystics had a lot of issues with consistent damage dealing, or alternatively, that was kind of like a side effect of the fact that 3 health enemies were really tough for them, right? So it was kind of like a snake eating its own tail for its issue, right? Where the damage was less consistent because they had to waste a damage on 3 health enemies. And by that I mean they had to spend a charge on their shriveling, for example, and that damage would just like drop off, right? You deal 2 damage on the first attack, 2 damage on the second attack, but the enemy only has 3 health, so you're kind of just like dropping a damage on the table. Spectral Razor was very important for that because it gave Mystics another tool in which they can deal consistent damage and have that 3 thing to just kill an enemy that has 3 health. Like with Brute Force, this was a very important shift as well, because if this just dealt 2 damage, I think that this card would see a lot less play. But because it deals 3 damage, it's huge for the viability of this card and the monsters that it's able to, or the enemies rather, not the monsters, the enemies that it's able to defeat. It's like you rarely see Spectral Razor being used on bosses because this card isn't here for killing bosses. This card is here to kill the small enemies that are on the way to the boss that you don't want to drop charges and waste damage on in the future. Well, in the now, and then save the other stuff for the boss in the future. This also allows you to engage the attacked enemy, which sounds like nothing, right? Like that sounds just like flavor text, right? But it's actually one of the nicest things about Spectral Razor in just terms of making the card the easiest play that you've ever seen in your life, right? There's no risk with playing a Spectral Razor. Like, the only risk of Spectral Razor is the fact that you might fail the test. Like, that's the only risk associated with it, and you're a Mystic, so you probably have ways of circumventing that downside, right? But like with every other spell or other thing that deals damage, unless like you're Blackjack 2, for example, the person holding the enemy is at risk, right? So you have to weigh the pros and cons of like, am I swinging into the enemy? Am I Mark Harrigan shooting Min 3 times in the head and killing her? Or alternatively, am I just going to like engage the enemy and then not kill Min, but have like not kill the enemy this turn? Lose tempo down the road. Spectral Razor says, no, you're just going to engage the enemy and it's going to be no problem whatsoever. That thing is freaking dead. And I think that Spectral Razor is a really nice card because of that. It's just like a perfect, like, everything comes together to make Spectral Razor just a very, very powerful card. And I think it's a very good choice here for a number 2. This would be my personal strongest card in Dream Eaters. I think it had the most impact. And I'm very worried about the Mystic class for when Current comes in, because I think losing Spectral Razor is going to be much more noticeable in the current pool than we know. Because it's been here for Dream Eaters. It's been here since 2019. It's been here for a long time. And I think it's like probably the strongest staple that Mystics have. So it's going to be tough to say bye. But, you know, all good things must come to an end. Speaking of all good things must come to an end, let's go to our number 1 strongest card as voted by our community from Dream Eaters. And you probably can guess what it is. It's Practice Makes Perfect with 32 of 92 votes. So really good Really good showing for this. Practice Makes Perfect is a one-cost Gambit tactic event, so Mark Harrigan can play it, which is actually super good for him. Fast, play during a skill test your location. Search stop 9 cards of your deck for a practice skill and commit it to the skill test if able. Shuffle the remaining cards back into your deck after this test ends. If it was successful, add that skill card to your hand instead of discarding it. This card has, Travis has talked about this card a lot on our channel. And I'm going to do my best to give it the hype it deserves, because Practice Makes Perfect is a very strong card. Travis would talk about in the past how this card has a slippery slope to it in a way where at a certain point, you look at your practice skills and you realize you have 6 practice skills in your deck and you go, I think I can run like 1 or 2 more and play Practice Makes Perfect. I think that's worth it. And notably as well, from what I've seen people be talking about online in our Discord channel, sometimes people will just run Practice Makes Perfect if they only have like 4 to 6 practice skills. I think the card is just like that nice. Skills are events that you don't have to pay for. That's just the nature of the designs of those cards. And being able to play those events or commit those skills multiple times increases the power level of those cards. Like going back to Brute Force, if that was a practice skill, that would be fucking nuts, right? Like that would be insane. And that's why we resourceful it back, because, you know, playing that card as much as possible is going to win you the game. And Practice Makes Perfect makes a similar sort of statement, where what if you wanted to play your Perception 2s a lot? What if you wanted to play your Leadership 2s a lot? What if you wanted to play your Enraptured 2s a lot? What if you wanted to play your Deduction 2s a lot? What if you wanted to play, I don't know, like a Stunning Blow a lot, right? Like these are all things that if you could play those cards multiple times, take the initiative, marks on the home front, right? Like all these things are very Vicious Blow. Overpower too! All these things are very powerful practice skills that playing multiple times means you're more likely to win the game. And being more likely to win the game is the best way to win the game, right? So Practice Makes Perfect does a really good job of helping you get there by just being super frickin' efficient. It only costs 1 resource, and then you get the card back into your hand too. So you get a free commit. And well, it's not free, it's one resource and a card in your hand. But it's like Practice Makes Perfect is a copy of that card that you do not discard, right? So you're actually not losing any value unless you do whiff on Practice Makes Perfect, which does happen. I'm not going to say it never happens. It does happen, but if you build your deck right, it's very, very unlikely to actually happen. Practice Makes Perfect is also really good to hold into your hand if you're about to do a deck reshuffle. And you might think, but Justin, how often am I reshuffling my deck? If you're a mystic, if you're a seeker playing Practice Makes Perfect and Perception 2, the answer to that question is probably quite a bit, because you also have other tools to cycle through your deck and make that happen quicker. And Practice Makes Perfect just makes everything happen quicker. I think that's kind of like the big thing for Practice Makes Perfect. It just makes everything happen quicker. Practice Makes Perfect is probably the card that I'm most excited to leave in the current and legacy format. Not because I don't want to play with it. I love playing with Practice Makes Perfect. I love watching Travis play Practice Makes Perfect. I love watching people play Practice Makes Perfect. It's just a very fun card to watch people resolve because the power level is so high. But I think that Practice Makes Perfect going into Legacy is going to be good, because then we can look at things like Enraptured and be like, okay, I understand this a bit more, or allow you to push the limit in terms of, it's going to allow you to push the limit in terms of what practice skills can be, because otherwise Practice Makes Perfect has kind of been hovering over the card pool, being like, oh, you're practice, what can I do with you? And I imagine the designers have even actually tuned down some practice skills because of Practice Makes Perfect. But when it rotates out, we're not going to need to do those tuning downs as much anymore, because in Legacy, they know it's going to be strong, so they might as well just let us have fun playing strong cards. And I think ultimately that's going to be healthier for us as players and for the card pool. All right, those were the top 5 strongest cards. I can do a few more shout-outs to some other cards that got 10 votes. 10 is like my cutoff for I have to pay attention to this and refer to it in the video, right? So we got Luke Robinson with 10 votes. Safeguard got 10 votes as well. Safeguard is a very good card. It's one where you can move with someone when they move. Scavenging 2, 12 votes. Very nice. That's actually all of it. So it actually was pretty top heavy for this one. There weren't a lot of other ones. Yeah, so a lot of people were talking about like this is a strong cycle of cards. And it really is. And that's what makes it so interesting to me. How we hate playing with it when we do a limited collection. And Travis could sum it up better than I could, and I'm not going to try to put his words into my words here because I would just end up fumbling it. But it's just the nature where just... It's an interesting thing, and what makes challenge runs so... What makes this game so interesting? It makes the card pool so interesting. So, those were the top 5 strongest cards, the Dream Eaters, as voted by our community. I hope you dug this video, and I hope you consider going and doing the top 3 strongest Forgotten Age cards down in the forum. I'll see you all in May for the next episode of the series, but in the meantime, thanks for watching, everybody, and if you want to support the channel, you can do so by liking, commenting, subscribing, you know, the traditional YouTube things. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Additionally, you can also, if you want to go a step above, you can join our Patreon and join all these awesome names below me right now. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one, and as always, a GG's.